Hello friends and welcome back to Enterprise Architecture. Now, last episode we started setting up our plastic production, and you can see the results of that behind me. I've actually, between episodes, gone around and done some upgrades here so that we have more parallel plastic production. Mainly the hydrogen was the bottleneck here. So now we're getting a little bit more throughput on the plastic, but it's still really awfully slow and it still needs a lot more work. But today, we are going to move away from plastic temporarily so that we can start on the next couple of ingredients that we need to unlock the next tier of research, that lemon yellow research. So, with no further ado, let's dive right in. So today, we are focused on chemical research, the last ingredients that we need for this. And to produce chemical research, we need pyrotheum dust and advanced plating. We're already making the plastic frames, which we did last episode. Advanced plating is relatively simple, except for that we require these basic plates and our plastic plates. So that's going to be a little tricky for us. The bigger one is that we need pyrotheum dust, and we are not producing pyrotheum dust at all right now. So we need a way of getting this. So we need both sulfur, which we get from blaze matter, as well as blaze powder itself, which conveniently enough we can get from hellish matter or blaze rods, which we also can get from blaze matter. So we're going to need to dive into deep mob learning again. Now, looking at our research tree, we need various things for deep mob learning here anyway. Pyrotheum we're going to want so that we can increase our processing, which is right here, our tier 3 clump production. We haven't gotten this unlocked yet, so that's certainly a priority for us. And if we go over and look at our materials research, we also want to get these nuclear craft ores because we're going to be using boron for some of the things that are coming up as well. So we should go ahead and set this up. It also turns out that we can get this oil sands data model here once we have that chemical research unlocked. So we need to make just 16 of those to get this oil sands data model, but we also need 32 8x research for the purple and 32 8x research for the blue to unlock this, which we still need to wait a little while till we get to that, as well as 4864 of the green and 1664 of the red. This is a lot of research to get this model unlocked. These other ones are relatively cheap for us. We're not going to be able to do the creeper research just yet. Again, we still need to unlock the lemon yellow research, that chemical research, but we can get the blaze data model. So let's go ahead and grab the ingredients to unlock this. Okay, so we have all of these ingredients, I believe. Perfect. And so now we have unlocked that blaze data model. So how do we make the blaze data model? Bottom right corner with a deep mob learning blank data model. Okay, so we should be able to make one of those. And now if we take this and combine it with these, we will get a blank data model. Putting it here, we get our blaze data model. Wonderful. Now, I suspect that we are going to want multiples of these. So I think I'll go ahead and make myself 2 for now, rather than just 1. So let's make another one here. Oops, we need to use our grid here. There we go. Our remote will make the right thing for us. And perfect. 2 blaze data models. Now, from that, we need to make ourselves a few more simulation chambers. So let's see here, simulation chamber. And for this, we are going to need those sooty casings again, which we remember is just a block of coal here. So we're going to take 2 of those. My inventory is once again filling up. And it looks like we are missing our aluminum sheet metal. So that's easy enough for us. Let's take that, 2 aluminum sheet metal. And now we should be able to make that sooty casing. There's one there. And one there. Okay, sooty casings in hand. We should just be able to make these now. Let's grab this and this. Perfect. Okay, so we used Ender IO cables to hook all of this up. So we are going to repeat that process. We need item conduits and the MV energy conduits. So let's add 2 more NV energy conduits to that. We are going to grab 2 more simulation chambers here. And we also need to give ourselves a basic drawer to hold the results of that. And we're going to lock that up tight for now. because exactly what just happened is what's going to happen. We do not want to put stuff in here that we don't want. There we go, lock it. So now this should be working. And let me see here, I think, yeah, this actually needs to be reconfigured pretty significantly here because I don't like the way the outputs are working here, but we'll figure that out later. Now for these, we need to tell it what model. So let's give it the Blaze data model on each of these. Good. And I just need to refresh. How am I extracting? This looks like it's round robin self-feed. Okay, so we're going to do the same thing here. And actually, you know what? We can do this even easier by using our handy dandy conduit probe that you all told me about in the comments. Do that and do that. That should copy these. It does. And then we're going to do the same thing up here. We're going to copy this conduit setting and then put this in like this. Whoops, one too many. And paste this in like this and like this. So this should start getting polymer clay. And it's just going to take a second for these to complete. So we're just going to hang out here and wait until we get some pristine blaze matter. Once we get that, we will move on to the next step. And there is our pristine blaze matter. We put that in here. We put this conduit into it. And we once again copy our conduit settings, not the metal press, the conduit settings from this one. And we paste it here. Okay, so these are not color-coded, as you may recall. When we put the loot fabricators together previously, we did those based on item filters. So we're going to use item filters again, but for that, we need to first make ourselves another loot fabricator, like so. And you know what, we might even need two of these now that I think about it. I'm going to go ahead and make two anyway, because I know that we're going to use them. So give ourselves our sheet metal, give ourselves our sooty casing, which, again, we need blocks of coal, which I always forget. The block of coal, the critical part of this. And you know what? This could be easily solved by moving my coal into a compressed drawer. That's really what I need to do, because then I can just pull the coal out as blocks automatically. Okay, there's that. And there's that. Two sooty casings, and now two loot fabricators. And two. Great. Okay. Now we need to go back into our Ender IO bag and grab our basic item filters. We are going to take our loot fabricator, and I'm just going to go ahead and put both of these down, even though I'm not going to connect them both yet. And then we just run power to each, and then our item conduits. Now this one, we are going to tell it we want to insert, but let's grab up one of these pristine blaze matters so that we know what we are inserting. Okay, just like this. We are going to filter this, and then we're going to configure the filter and tell it to use pristine blaze matter only, and that should always insert. Okay, and there we go. We can get blaze rods or sulfur. Now remember how we said before that we need both of these? So we are going to configure this one the same way. So we're going to say a filter here, configure that to use pristine blaze matter as the insert, and never extract. Okay, now this one will do blaze rods, this one we will do sulfur, and this one we're going to put blaze rods in, and it looks like we got the advancement, and this one we are going to put sulfur in, just like that. And those should start filling up as soon as we get more of those ingredients out, which means more of our wither matter. Excuse me, the blaze matter. There we go. Sulfur's coming out there, and that should pull out. The only thing we had forgotten to do is, of course, connect it up. So let's turn off that, turn off that, and then once again, we'll use our conduit probe to make sure that we are importing correctly. Okay. And there we go. It's automatically starting to pull in there. Great. So this is going to give us all of the blaze rods we need, and this is also then going to turn into all of the sulfur that we need. Now, the blaze rods can also be turned into blaze powder. So we just want a basic recipe, probably this one here, but I think the pulverizer gives us even more blaze powder. Actually, this might be the recipe to use because we get sulfur half the time off of every blaze rod. So maybe we should change that so that we are pulverizing these and then sulfur becomes the byproduct, because we only need a small amount of sulfur for the amount of blaze powder that we're getting. Then again, we can do this with auto crafting and it'll be much, much faster to not have to rely on that and just have a separate loot fabricator. Since we have 2 of these, I think we'll be able to keep up. I'm not positive, but once these get up to speed, you can see here we're already topped out on pretty much all of our other types of matter. So I suspect that these will keep up fine as well. So maybe I'll leave it like this. Yeah, I feel pretty confident about that. I think this is the fine way to do it. Now, I will have to set myself up, maybe the super factory machine again, to automatically make our blaze powder. And then I could put it right here in this line, and it would be auto-crafted as well. So maybe that's what I will do, is add that. I just have to figure out where I want to put that storage drawer and how I want to set this up, given that this is our pattern already. So I'm going to think on that a second and set up our auto crafting here real quick. Okay, so I've cleaned this up considerably. I've made it so that all of my inputting is going into the drawer controller on this side, and this is just for overflow now. And then our primary resources, these are prioritized according to the connection here, if I can connect this. So it's got a priority of 1 on insert, so it's going to want to loot fabricate first, and only the overflow should go in here. These have a priority of 0. And then on this side, I'm also inserting into the drawer controller, but I've added a second row under here. And this is actually a pattern that I picked up from Vintage Story of having a row underneath and using half slabs to be able to still access it. I've got my Super Factory Manager here, and I'm using that to auto-craft my blaze powder and telling it to keep a minimum of 64. I also have a storage downgrade here, so it's only going to be able to hold a single stack at any given time. I might remove that later, but I just didn't want to overwhelm the system at this point when I'm only making a few at a time. Now, the other thing we can do is use the Super Factory Manager to create our Pyrotheum dust, now that we have a source of blaze powder and a source of sulfur. So let's go ahead and set that up real quick as well. I'm going to do the same trick as I did before. I'm going to put down 1 block, and I'm going to lock it up. And then I'm going to take a piece of sulfur, a piece of redstone, and 2 pieces of my blaze powder, and use that to make my Pyrotheum dust. There we go. Blazium would also be a good name for it, don't get me wrong. And we pick up that box and we're going to put it right here. And we will rotate that. There we go. And now we're going to tell Super Factory Manager to do the same thing again. We're going to put our trigger here. We're going to create an input here. Connect those up. Our input is going to be the inventory of our drawer controller, and we're going to tell it down and activate. And the items that we care about here are going to be blaze powder. We are going to care about sulfur. And we're going to care about redstone. And last but not least, we are going to care about Pyrotheum. Great. So that is our whitelist of items. Now we create our condition here. And we are just going to say the inventory that we just selected and the items that we care about here, we're going to say we need Pyrotheum. And we are going to tell it that we want to specify the amount and say that we need 64. Okay, perfect. Now, before we go any further, I do want to create one additional block here. I want to do my storage downgrade, which we have right here. And I'm going to put my storage downgrade in here before we do our moving things around, because that's going to max that out at 64. So although we're telling it 64 here, I just want to make absolutely sure that we don't accidentally overflow. We're going to create an auto crafter and connect that up to our system here. And now we're going to teach it the recipe for Pyrotheum. So sulfur, redstone, blaze powder, and blaze powder again. Okay, and that's Pyrotheum. We're going to move before crafting, and we are going to tell the excess goes into the drawer controller. Now, the last thing to do is tell it to put it into our output here. And we need to select the inventory again. We select the target. Again, we're going to do down. It doesn't really matter when we're dealing with our storage controllers. And then to whitelist here, we are going to give it the blazing Pyrotheum dust, I guess they call it, Pyrotheum dust. And we're going to whitelist that. Okay. And immediately you can see we already are up to 64. It happened instantaneously. That is super fast crafting. So all of these pieces are now coming together and working seamlessly. Now, this also means that we are done with our Pyrotheum dust task here, and we might be able to finally create our Pyrotheum ore concentrator if we can unlock that processing. Great. So now our induction smelter is unlocked, and we can make one of those to go ahead and finish the quest. And let's go ahead and make that. Great. Okay, there is our pyro concentrator. Okay, so we need blazing pyrotheum for this to work, and blazing pyrotheum we make by melting this down, right? Where is blazing pyrotheum? Yeah, so we need a magma crucible or a melter, but I think the magma crucible is the way to go. Okay, great. So we might go ahead and make ourselves a magma crucible so that we can get blazing pyrotheum. I just want to see if this is used for anything else. If we get cinnabar, how do we get cinnabar? From rich slag and gelid cryotheum. Ooh, so we might need to get that. And rich slag is made from slag and lava. Okay. So gelid cryotheum we get from cryotheum dust, and we get that from blizz powder. Blizz powder we should get from blizz rods, and that's from a pristine thermal elemental matter data model. Thermal elemental data model. It looks like we can make this. So let's see if we can indeed make this. And if we can, we'll set up our blizz powder here the same way we did the pyrotheum. So let's try that again. We need to grab ourselves a couple of pieces of our polymer clay. And then we need a blank data model. Wonderful. And then the blizz is right there. Excellent. So we can do that as well. So now all we need is another one of our simulation chambers. So let's go ahead and make that. And we know from previous experience that we're going to need 2 sooty casings here. So I'm going to go ahead and make 2 of those while we're at it. A couple of extra blocks of our aluminum sheet metal. There's 1. And there's 2. And the first one we are going to use for our simulation chamber. And the second one we are going to use for our loot fabricator. Just like that. All right, let's hook up the system here. We go ahead and put this in its spot, add our power cable to it, and we drop that off. Give it our item conduit on top, just like so. And then we just need to copy and paste our settings here. And there we go. So that should all work. Now all we need to do is tell it that this is doing our thermal elemental data model to make our blizz. Okay, there we go. Now we have a single unit of our pristine thermal elemental matter. There we go. And now we need to build a loot fabricator for it. So we're going to put this here. And we're just going to hook this up exactly the same way. So we nerd pull up for a second. We grab our remaining power cables, of which there are not many. And then we just copy and paste our settings again, like so. There we go. And now this needs to know that it needs a filter, and it should be getting pristine thermal elemental matter. Now, when we put thermal elemental matter in here, I don't know why it's getting those out. There we go. That's why. It's because it wasn't filtering before. Now it's filtering. And so we need to tell it what to do. Oh yeah, all of these things we are going to need. We don't need to worry about them yet, but it is something we are going to want to keep an eye on. Okay, so we're going to settle for this for now. And we will go ahead and connect this stuff up. And again, we're going to copy and paste our settings just like that. And remove our nerd pole from here. Okay, and now we can use that to tell it to make our, what was it, Blitz powder. And you all have already seen me set this up, so I'm just going to fast forward ahead and do all of this off camera because this just takes a second to fiddle with. Okay, so we are still running into power bottlenecks. So I've gone ahead and hooked up our diesel generator to our HV energy conduit, and that's starting to relieve things a little bit, but I'm still not getting enough hydrogen production through my electrolyzers to be able to keep up. So I need to try something more extreme here. So I built myself a fractioning still so that I can use naphtha to refine into, wait for it, into refined fuel. Refined fuel they can then use inside of our compression dynamo, and apparently that's supposed to make 1.5 million RF per tick? That seems like a lot. I don't know if that's accurate, but we're gonna try it. So here we have our fractioning still. It's relatively simple to make. I'm gonna look at the recipe real quick here. So we made one of these previously. So it's just some glass, a nickel gear, Constantine gears, machine frame, and redstone reception coil. Very similar to most of our thermal expansion machines. Now to that, we need to add a fluid exporter on the side here. And we are telling it to export naphtha. So I made a card for that already, export naphtha. So that should be getting naphtha in there. Now we also need to tell it to export our energy. So let's go ahead and grab an energy exporter. Do we have one that's already? And we just use this one. This is fine. An energy exporter, and we're going to connect this on the back right here. And we're going to tell this to just go ahead and give it whatever power it needs. There we go. And that should be going pretty quickly there. And now this should turn this into refined fuel. Now there's an optional export here that we need to add for the sulfur byproduct that it's going to create. So we need an item importer, if we have one. Item exporter, I guess not. So let's go ahead and make ourselves an item importer. We can, our inventory is so ridiculously full now. Okay, so use this with our input variable transformer. And that's going to give us an item importer. And we're going to tell this to import all items. So just because it doesn't really matter what this imports, it should work either way. Now let's just add import all items card there. Great. And tell it to export our secondary item there. And now we've got refined fuel coming out. So let's make the refined fuel pop out this side, the right-hand side. And now let's go ahead and put down our compression dynamo right here. Well, I must be doing something very wrong here. I'm going to go ahead and add the reflux column upgrade and also give it a harden upgrade. But it's not pulling the refined fuel out into this conduit and into the compression dynamo. I can't figure out why that is. Okay, I finally got it to work through some magic of connecting the cables and disconnecting the cables and putting the aqueous accumulator directly on top of the compression dynamo instead of having a cable in between and having this portable tank in between. This all suddenly made it start working. I'm not sure why it required all that, but it did. So I'm going to go ahead and make another upgrade for this machine using, where is it here, the ignition plugs. Oh, looks like I'm missing one thing for the ignition plugs. What is that? It is yeah, of course, it's one of the coils. It's always one of the coils. Okay, so let's go ahead and make this ignition plug upgrade real quick. And with that, this should be even more efficient. Oh yeah, look at that, just cranking out the power now. This is ridiculously efficient. Okay, so let's wire that into our HV cables here. Just go up and into that wall, I guess, a bit here, like right over this way. I think ideally I want to move all of this back another spot, but for now, this is just temporary. We're gonna put some walls and stuff in place later. This will do fine. All right, so all of that lovely power is now getting dumped into our system. So this should radically increase the amount of power that we're generating. I think this only does 7,500 per tick. This is supposed to do, let's see that again. How much is that? Some ridiculous amount. 1,500. No, 1,500,000 RF per tick. Okay, that is a ridiculous amount. I don't think that's right. I think that's got to be too higher than it is. I think it's saying that for 1,000 millibuckets, it does 1,500,000 RF. I don't think that's telling us how much per tick it is, but it's definitely producing a lot of power for us. Okay, so the next thing to do here is to start actually making our new chemical research. So to that end, I've set up another researcher here, and I'm putting it right down on the back of these other researchers. I'm using the integrated dynamics cables again, and I'm just going to connect it up right here. These are going to be much more tightly packed, I should say, than we had done previously. Now, not all of the ingredients that we need are already wired into our system. I want to be clear about that. We have most of them, but not all of them. So let's go ahead and check those recipes again. So we want the chemical research. This requires advanced plating. I'm going to make some of these manually. We don't have those automated yet. Pyrotheum we have automated, and plastic frames we have automated. So these advanced plating is going to be the last thing that we're going to need to do. But for now, let's get the pyrotheum dust and plastic frames into our variable cards real quick. There we go. So pyrotheum dust, great. So we're going to put this in, let's see, we have to be strategic about which card slot we put it into, because most of these are tiny inputs, but this one is a small, and that means it's going to fill up real fast. So I think pyrotheum dust is a safe one to put here. Let's do this. So that should, yes, immediately start filling up with pyrotheum dust. Great. Now, the next one is going to be our plastic frames, and make a card for this. Okay, and let's put that on the far side, right over here. Export item, plastic frame. And those are already hooked up, so yes, we're already full up on plastic frames. And now last, we're going to need our advanced plating. We're going to add that recipe. Okay, great. And then that variable card we are going to put right in here. Wonderful. Okay, so let's go make ourselves a handful of that advanced plating by hand, and then we can go ahead and set this up later on. Okay, so to make advanced plating, we first have to make basic plating. So let's go ahead and make a bunch of these. Oops, wrong screen again. Keep making that mistake. A bunch of basic plating. So let's do a stack. Well, it looks like we can do half a stack because we don't have enough coal in here. Well, that's fine. We can go get more coal later. Okay, so with our basic plating, we can now make our advanced plating, and that's super easy. Oh, it doesn't even know about it. Keep going, give me all of it. What? Why is this going so slowly? Oh, because I don't have this in here. Easy enough. Okay, so let's do that, and then we'll do this, and drop that into our last slot here. Now, this should say not enough power. That's exactly what we wanted to say. It's got all of the ingredients, it just needs power. So to that end, we are going to hook this up with power. So let's grab our cables, and we need an energy exporter. Again, we have a bunch of those left, although we are running out quickly. Put that down there, connect up our cables, and then give it a card. And we're going to go ahead and make this a large, there we go, large energy input hatch. Not enough energy. Oh, maybe it's because I need to tell this card to do more. What's the maximum that we're allowed on this? Is this 2,000? Can we do 5,000? 5,000, okay. And that seems to be increasing. And yes, there, now we have power coming out of it. Okay, so the last thing to do is what we always do, which is put our item conduits down the front here and tell it to pull out those items, the research. So let's put this here. And we are gonna go ahead and make ourselves another one of our drawers. And we want the compacting drawer, just like that. Okay, great. And we can put this down right here. Okay, tell it to extract here and import here. So eventually this should give us our new research. So we're just gonna wait a little while on that until the new research is unlocked. Okay, and there we have our first couple of chemical research, knocking off that quest right here. So we didn't completely make all the progress I wanted to in this episode, mainly because we still have those bottlenecks. Between episodes, I'm going to go back through and see if I can't optimize even further my power and fuel production. I might double up or triple up on my oil production and then processing that I'm doing down there, just so that I can keep up with both of those, because right now it is a massive bottleneck for me. And then next episode, we'll come back and we will finish the automation of our yellow research, and then we'll be able to keep progressing through our pack. But we're going to have to wait till the next episode for all that. So thanks again for watching Enterprise Architecture, and we'll see you back here next time. Bye, friends.